enlighten some people, but Planned Parenthood is a diabolical organization. Right now, they're under investigation of the feds for improper use of government money. I think to the tune, every year they get roughly around 329 million taxpayer dollars. But the simple fact of the matter is that abortion is not good for women. Abortion is a direct link to breast cancer. And as we were sharing earlier, in the African American community, we make up 12% of the population, but 37% of the abortions. And with abortions being the most performed operation on a woman, you're going to have a rise in breast cancer, which can be sociologically documented that has been the case. In the African American community, many people don't know breast cancer was not an issue. But since 1973, basically the leading cause of death in the women in their 40s is breast cancer, and it's second in their 50s. So this is unprecedented. It is simply because abortion being the most performed operation on a woman that you have seen this dramatic rise in breast cancer.
Yeah, it's incredible. And for them to ignore those links is disgusting, but I've monitored a number of blogs and news reports about this whole Komen Planned Parenthood controversy, and there's a lot of denial that there is such a link, that it's some kind of rumor or myth. And just as a parallel, there's also the issue last October where Komen was denying the bisphenol A link to breast cancer. They actually on their blog refused to acknowledge that there's a link there, even though there's been countless studies of the estrogen mimicker BPA and its at least contributory cause to breast cancer. So are they really interested in finding this cure? That's a question that's out there.
Well, I think Komen really needs to come in examination just for any affinity with Planned Parenthood. Especially, we just shed a little bit of light of it, and I'd like to be able to talk more in depth, but the fact of the matter, African Americans, when they contract breast cancer from an induced abortion, the cancer that develops is far more aggressive than if it would have been from any other means. And so we're seeing breast cancer literally ravaging the African American community, women, and of course overall because of what abortion does to a woman's body. So we need to, all this needs to be exposed. I'm happy for this to have happened, that people are challenging this affiliation, because it's going to cause people to investigate. But I'm also outraged, should be outraged, and everybody should be outraged that Yale School of Public Health now says they're not going to have any affiliation with Komen for having, when they first retracted their grants. Barbara Boxer said this is like the age of McCarthy. I mean, this is an outrage, and we have to understand and when Yale University begins to draw the line in the sand. Isn't institutions of learning supposed to be the marketplace of ideas and exchange? I'm now condemned because I don't believe in your position on abortion, your position on choice. We, Christians, people of faith, need to stand up, and at least those who care for women's health, whether you're a Christian or not, should expose these evils. And this is all about ideology, but it's more about money.
Well, I think everyone's obviously interested in cutting breast cancer rates. The question is this how you do it? And do we really know where our money goes when you donate money to such a large organization that they could have these umbrella ties to something as controversial and repugnant as Planned Parenthood?
You're right. And I think, first of all, this is about principle. If I'm supporting Komen, and of course, I think every American should support any institution that is concerned with this devouring condition that is now very prominent in all of America, but especially with minorities, African American women. But we have to understand that this is the season that abortion is business. It is politically run. It supplies a lot of money to campaigns. Barbara Boxer needs to keep her mouth shut. Mayor Bloomberg heard what had happened, and he offered $250,000 to Planned Parenthood. This is absurd. It's crazy. And I pray that people become outraged and really begin to look at this. Yes, there's those in it to see abortion as very lucrative. I often say if abortion was not lucrative, it would not be legal. But no doubt this is the ideology of Planned Parenthood. And anyone who's supporting the ideology of targeting minorities for abortion and the mindset of population control is basically, that's racism, and we need to divorce ourselves from any institution and certainly withdraw our support from anyone that's aiding and abetting this.
Well, if you're going to extend that to eugenics, that's quite a large divorce from a large sector of society. But what about this Planned Parenthood Komen thing as a political wedge? You've just mentioned so many figures on the Democratic left coming out in support of them providing grants to Planned Parenthood. A lot of Republicans on the right coming out on the pro-life issue. Is it a good thing for this to come up in the political cycle? I mean, you pointed out so many African Americans who've put themselves under the Democratic tent refuse to look at this issue because of a lot of the political blinders placed at the top. What will this issue help drive the truth of the issue more into the general population?
I pray it does. You know, that's my greatest frustration of anybody in this work that sees how the Democratic Party is totally in bed with the abortion industry. You saw that in the health care plan, where indeed abortion was just, the health care plan was just a guise of the Freedom of Choice Act. This president is determined to have taxpayer abortions. He's ignoring the Hyde Amendment. He wants to circumvent that and have his own view of eugenics forced upon this nation. And so we see now he has repealed the Freedom of Conscience Act. In other words, if you're going to be a doctor, you better learn how to do abortions. We have to basically have all these things exposed. African Americans need to know, and when it's all said and done, they're getting the worst of this. It is not a service to women. It's a disservice. It is hurting women. It is hurting them psychologically, physiologically, and socially. So we have to understand now that any time that something like this surfaces and comes to the forefront, we can gain from this lessons of this entrenched eugenics in this society. And this government basically does not believe in we the people. They're enforcing their ideology on the society. And African Americans need to wake up and know that they're getting the worst of it. And so we need to challenge the Congressional Black Caucus. We to challenge the NAACP. We know you're getting money from the abortion industry or the population control entities. We know you're getting money, but you're also wise enough to know what it's doing to the community. So they become very much elitist in mindset, and they're ignoring their first responsibility, that is to represent the people. And the black clergy, some of them, and all of the Congressional Black Caucus, most of them are just representing themselves. It's a disconnect. So if I can get the story of Komen on my website and other people can get this story out, it will help educate the public. And that's why, indeed, I look at this as a godsend, and hopefully it'll wake some people up.
Yes, sir. And because they've said this whole link between abortion and breast cancer is a myth, can you specifically point us to where we can find more research, where people out there can learn about the reality of this for themselves?
You know, sometimes I live in a vacuum. I think everybody's reading the same stuff I'm reading. Folks, go to blackgenocide.org. Look at the American Cancer Society exposes. You know, it's a story about those who have now defected from or no longer attached to the American Cancer Institute, I believe it's called. And they will tell you, they know there's a direct link between abortion and breast cancer. I mean, there's independent studies, and they're so much suppressed by the mainstream and, you know, the departments of education, which have become so secularized and so controlled politically. But first and foremost, the American Cancer Society or Institute knows it, and they have censored it. And we should be outraged as a people. I try to talk about it as much as I can, but we need to know this. And so there is a link. It can be definitively proven, empirically proven, scientifically proven, and we need to, as citizens, begin to rise up and demand the Komens to stop the charade. If you're caring about breast cancer, you can't let a dime go to the leading abortion provider in this country. It's an oxymoron. It's ridiculous. So I'm thankful once again that programs like this and stories like this are coming to the forefront.
Well, people should read those studies for themselves. I'm outraged at the institutional silence in general. I mean, by way of parallel, it came out last week that a group of the staff at the FDA were trying to warn about the risk of a certain medical device the FDA was about to approve, and the FDA's response was to spy on their own employees and try to target them for dismissal. And so that's what you get from whistleblowers inside institutions. So it's good that this information's out there. It's bizarre and appalling that there's so much institutional silence, but I hope people will go to blackgenocide.org and read about those studies for themselves.
Well, I thank you for pointing that out. And folks, this is big business for most. It's money for most. For the candidates, for the political entities, for the NAACPs, the National Action Committee, Sharpton's, the Rainbow Coalition with Jesse Jackson. It's about money for them. But when it comes to population control entities and the people who are truly behind the Planned Parenthoods, it's an ideology. And they are targeting minority babies. And we need to understand that that is racism, and we also need to understand that that's diabolical and it's murder. And God cannot bless this nation as long as we have laws that basically allow us to kill our most vulnerable.
Doctor, we'll leave it there for today, unless you wanted to add anything else, and we appreciate you joining us.
Oh, I appreciate this program. Thank you for having me. And of course, this has been a blessing to our ministry, I want to say. And I pray that the people that hear this ask themselves, what is my role and how can I stand up? It is still, until it gets worse, we the people. And so we the people need to rise up.
Yes, sir. And again, your website's blackgenocide.org. And is there a website for the Learn activism? Yes,
learn.inc.org. And also you can go to listen to, go to my website, theurbanprophet.org, and listen to Eve Silver. Find that program under programming, and you can hear about the deaths of breast cancer and abortion. She's a breast cancer survivor, and she's also studied and a counselor and a physician, and she knows that today she is marred because of an abortion. And so these people are getting out and telling the story. That's theurbanprophet.org. Did an interview with Eve Silver. Love for your listeners to listen to that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all for tonight's INFOWARS Nightly News, but we will leave you with a quote of the day from Benjamin Disraeli. For you see, he says, the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And that's it for our program tonight. We hope you join us again tomorrow. Stay tuned to INFOWARS.com and PrisonPlanet.tv and keep spreading news about the INFOWARS Nightly News.